A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, just waiting.
It's lights out and away we go. It's a great start from Sebastian Vettel. We come up the inside. McLaughlin gets it They run, but the Red Bull Racing man has got through. The champion's done the job. They're all gone. They're all gone. Tander's off. McLaughlin's off. Make room. Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt. There's another 7-time champ. Jimmy Johnson wins his 7th NASCAR Sprint Cup championship.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to sunny Queensland for round 9 of the Automobilista Australia Supercars Championship. Tonight we'll be tackling Queensland Raceway, colloquially known as the paperclip. And speaking of stationary, the only thing that will be stationary in this race will be the drivers when they take their pit stops. As always, our Apex Rear Wing TV broadcast team bringing you all of the action tonight on behalf of Short Shift Podcast. My name's Stairs, and joining me in the commentary box, as always for this series, is Madbird. And by Jove, did these guys give us a hell of a race last time out in Montreal, Madbird?
Absolutely, potentially the most exciting race of the series so far, which is saying something considering how good the rest of the series has been. But yeah, just action all up and down the field, especially at the top of the field, and another tragedy for Brenton Hobson. Yes,
absolutely. I mean, we feel like a bit of a broken record mentioning his engine failures that they've really cost him, and as a result, Lewis Wedding at the top of the championship standings has got himself a little bit of a handy lead, doesn't he, Madbird?
He does indeed. As I open up the points spreadsheet, you're going to have to bear with me just a second.
How much time did I give you to do that, mate?
I'd forgotten. I remember how I made fun of the fact that you were giving me the same thing to do as always. I forgot about the thing I needed to do. So Lewis Wedding has a 15-point lead over Brenton Hobson in the championship, with Brenton Hobson's technical DNF, but still qualifies for 13th position at Montreal. And then we've got Aaron Thomas, who hasn't rocked up for 2 races. He would be right up in this if he had done. 3rd place, 4 points behind Brenton Hobson. Will Devonish, another 8 points behind Aaron Thomas, and Matt Williams Scruff. Scruff is 7 points behind Will Devonish. Baker also hasn't rocked up for a couple of races. 63 points. Tied with Brock Harvey, who we believe is not arriving tonight, potentially, not here tonight. Hayden Schultz, 45 points down in 8th position, and Cracker in 9th position. Surprising, but he's been here for every race pretty much, so I guess just consistently getting some points. And rounding out the top 10 is Dwayne Davies and Kurt Stenberg. Kurt Stenberg only having participated in 2 races, but in those 2 races, a 1st and a 3rd position, and surprisingly is unranked for the series, which that must be some sort of error, Stairs.
Quite possibly. I don't know if he's done enough races to be considered a ranked driver. On my screen here, I've got him as a Pro B, but surely, given the pace he's shown in recent weeks, he is considered to be a Pro A level driver. Well, I guess we'll come back to that. Have you got the Pro-Am point situation in front of you there as well?
Absolutely. You have to bear with me for just a second. I forgot about that being a thing.
While
you're hating me right now, aren't you, Des? Let's be honest.
We've had better starts. Let's be honest.
Brendan Foley currently leading the Pro-Am Super 2 results with 97 points, a commanding lead over the 2nd place runner of Philip Boak, back down in with 66 points. So a handy 31-point lead for Brendan Foley there. Brendan Ross down in 3rd, 45 points, only just 2 points ahead of Rob Dunt. So Rob Dunn, I believe, is here tonight. I thought I saw his name.
He's actually currently 5th in the practice session, so he's the top-ranked Pro-Am driver currently in the practice session.
Absolutely. So he is looking to take that 3rd place from Brendan Ross. Cameron Costa, or Cam, also known as All-Round Cameron, also here tonight. He is currently in 5th position. just ahead of Luke Joyner, 37 points, and Cameron Rutledge, the other Cameron, 36 points. So 38, 37, and 36 for those three, very close on the table. David Keane with, oh God, phone, what are you doing? Why have you done this to me? Phone, please. Phone, I loved you. David Keane is in 8th place with 30 points. Brian Walsh, 28. And Gary Neville rounding out the top 10 with 26. And Big Dog is in 11th place and looking like he's going to sneak into the top 10 possibly tonight because Gary Neville does not appear to be here. So very exciting for all the Big Dog fans of who I know there are many.
Nor does Brian Walsh appear to be here, that is. So that certainly looks like he'll have a few positions that he will gain tonight, and my goodness gracious, man, that battle for 5th, 6th and 7th is going to be very close. Luke Joyner, incidentally, the Super Series Pro-Am champion, despite not finishing in first place in any of the Pro-Am races there, but just shows how consistency is key with this point system that, let me remind you, is 20 points for a win, and then going down in for 17 points in second place, and so on and so forth. Let's have a quick look at the format for tonight's race, which will be a 45-lap race around the 3.12 kilometre circuit. Quite a simple circuit, only 6 laps, clockwise in direction, and about 140 kilometres. Those 6 corners, though, don't be fooled, as someone takes a lot of curb in the background. I'm not on your screen, but I'm just looking at the monitor during the practice session, which has just ticked over to naught, so we'll be going into qualifying very shortly indeed. Those 6 corners, they're quite tricky. They're very, very fast, and that front left tyre is going to get a hammering tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And how many laps is it, Stairs? I think you said 6, but that can't be right.
6 turns, 45 laps.
45 laps,
So
cool.
that's 45 laps, which, given the nature of this circuit, will necessitate a pit stop at some stage, probably due to tyres rather than fuel, I'd imagine. But we haven't actually had any information from the drivers through about that thus far, how their tyres have fared in practice. But we've just rolled into the qualifying session, and we can tell you that Colin Warwick set the fastest time in that practice session of a 107.9 from Kurt Stenberg in second, Brenton Hobson in third, as we have the almighty rush to get to the end of the pit lane. And at the front of that pit lane is Kurt Stenberg, and those astute viewers out there may have just noticed the name of Ethan Warren and Dane Warren, who have made their pistol. They didn't actually make it onto the track during the practice session for any sort of of practice laps, but well, we certainly know that from coming from the iRacing background that they have and the illustrious circles that they hang with, or that they are part of, that they will be very much on the pace, I should think.
Absolutely. I haven't actually seen these guys race in any AMS Oz races, but I have heard tell of your horror stories of their alienness. So it's going to be it'll be interesting to see how their old favourites, Brendan Hobson, Lewis Wedding, who was down in 11th during practice, so he's going to want to improve on that during qualifying. Of course, Jamie Snow and Kurt Stenberg, who not really an old favourite, but definitely one of our faster runners. Be interesting to see how they handle the pressure from these 2 aliens.
Definitely. Dane Warren, the faster of the 2 Warren brothers, but well, we'll see how he goes. Interestingly, the man you're looking at on screen right now, Kurt Stenberg, went out onto the track well before the timer started ticking over, and so his first lap may well not count because the session hadn't started yet. So as a result of that, he's got the track to himself, but this lap may well just be a bit of a sighter. We're going to go on board with Kurt Stenberg as he sets his first lap. Well, the timer appears to be counting, so we'll wait and see when he comes across the line whether it actually does count his lap. But he's already gone through turn 1, and he's currently going through turn 2, and you can see these very fast, long radius corners. They really do place a premium on the tyres themselves, so those temperatures will be going way up, braking just past 150 metre board there for turn 3 there, and again a little bit slower than turn 1 and 2, but still quite a long corner. And here you get to give the right hand side tyres, the left hand side tyres a little bit of a break as you head into these left hand couple of corners, turns 4 and 5. leaning on the right-hand tyres for once, so they get a bit of work put into them, and heading down towards turn 6, the final corner, and back leaning on those left-hand tyres, and onto the main straight. Kurt Stenberg, well, will he set our first benchmark time? It has counted, so credit to him. It's a 108.3, yeah, or 0.2.
Yeah. He did set a faster first sector than Warwick, Hobson, or Brody Steen. So who is Brody Steen? That's a name I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, Brody Steen, this is just his second round with us, not in Supercars. He actually competed in the TCC series that was broadcast on Lewis Wedding's Twitch channel on Monday. So he actually took out both of those wins on Monday night, so he'll be looking for he'll probably be getting some weight penalties put on him for that particular championship, but no such thing in this category, and we're seeing already that he's up there. He was 4th in the practice session, and I have it on good authority from a mate of mine, Sam Smith, that he is a very good, clean, fast racer from his race department days. So he comes with a reputation of clean, good, fast racing.
Absolutely, and Kurt Stenberg, sorry, just on his second hot lap, got stuck behind Luke Joyner throughout the middle sector and the last couple of corners of the track. So he
hasn't stopped him from going faster.
Oh, okay, never mind.
So there's more time in it from what you're telling me.
Yeah, definitely. He definitely lost at least a second, I reckon. Probably, maybe I might be exaggerating.
Did you say in the middle sector?
Towards the end, coming up to the last corner, he had to dive out of the way of Luke Joyner. So definitely lost a few tenths at the very least. But currently holding court at the top of the as he's gone off. So has abandoned that lap by the looks of it. Has Stenberg.
Well, Ethan Warren has gone second in that melee. He's just 0.03 of a second off Stenberg, and Hobson a further 100th of a second behind. So it's all very close, and Foley's within a tenth. So we didn't actually, I don't think he showed his hand pace-wise in that practice session. Bretton Foley staying as a Pro-Am for this particular category so he can contest the Super 2 Championship, but my goodness gracious me, he's really fighting at the top end with the Pro-A guys at the moment in terms of his pace.
Absolutely, and it appears that our illustrious El Chief Scruff has Matt Williams has decided to throw his lot in and pulled his racing gloves on, so he is going to be racing in this race, which we didn't believe he was going to be. So good on you, Scruff. Get in there.
Depends whether he's just in there so he can get some information for. Well, he said he was doing radio engineering for one driver who I'm not sure, I can't remember who that was because he gave me an answer when I asked that question that I didn't fully understand. But anyway, another person that I'd like to make mention of is Thomas McMillan in that early 2000s Scaife livery there. I don't believe we've seen too much of him in this particular series, but he was very fast in the Brock Harvey Invitational at Sandown Raceway a couple of weeks ago and won the second race of that. And he's one to watch out for. This is his first timed lap as he comes through turn 1. His first proper time lap. His first time lap was about 6 seconds off the pace, so we expect that was just a bit of a warm-up, or he might have found traffic as he goes very wide through turn 2, and that's going to hurt his pace down the longest straight on this racetrack.
Yeah, he sort of hit the apex far too early, and rejoining the track just ahead of him luckily doesn't dive across. So excellent avoiding there from. I'm looking at the map, and there's so many cars, and the track is not an enormous track, Stairs. So I'm amazed that anybody is finding any space to do any hot laps at all.
Speaking of hot laps, Colin Warwick set the fastest first sector on this particular lap, but he's just gone back to the pits there. So we'll go back and try and find. We've lost him. He's probably jumped across the line.
Looks like Brendan Hobson is setting a flying lap at the moment, going around the last corner. That is going to be a fast one, I believe.
There he is, Thomas McMillan. So he's 4 seconds up on his best, but that's still a second and a half off.
Do apologise. Hobbo goes first fastest, about 2/10 almost faster than Kurt Stenberg's time. So, and then immediately gets held up by Cracker and Jay Hemi. So, although
Joe Hemi, another new guy joining us this week.
Absolutely. So the sea's parted there for Hobson a bit, so he might be able to continue this hot lap. And he is indeed up on his time, although he is coming up behind Voda, which will give him some cause for concern.
Just marginally, but yeah, he's a fantastic camera angle as he heads down to turn 4. So Voda, if he catches him, that's going to be at the worst possible time coming in. Oh God, he's caught much. I thought he was going to catch him at turn 6. He's caught him in turn 4. And Voda on a fast lap. Oh goodness gracious! So that's completely destroyed that lap. So Hobson will go back to the pit lane for that one. So that's not good for his prospects. Kurt Stenberg's jumped up into 3rd place, just 0.02 of a second off Ethan Warren. So this is really turning into a very close battle for pole position. And I can't say we're surprised, quite honestly, because this is the kind of thing we saw in Montreal last week. And given this is a smaller racetrack in terms of lap time, as Hobson takes to a very busy racetrack behind all sorts of traffic, and he's got Jamie Snow directly in front of him on the racetrack coming out of the pits as well, who had to wait at the exit of the pit lane for the 2 cars to go through turn 1. Well, we've got Stenberg's actually improved his time to within to within a couple of hundredths of Hobson as well, but not enough to unseat him. 107.8 is the fastest lap time we've seen tonight, with the fastest lap in practice being at 107.9.
Yeah, so Hobbo obviously
Ethan Warren's just got on top.
Pulling it out a little bit. Big Dog with some vehicle mismatches by the looks of it, not being able to join in the server properly, although he's set times, so it can't be kicking him. I'm not sure what's going on with that. Hobbo getting out of the way of Will Devonish, who's trying to set a good lap time. He's still in the scrap to get up into the 4th and 5th places on the in the championship, I think, Devonish. So,
Ethan Warren, he's just gone top, but he was on a faster lap. He set 23.8 in the first sector, which was up on his pole lap, but he's just found traffic on, I think it was either Philip Oak or Brenton Foley, just caught up to them at the wrong moment. But despite that, he's still half a tenth up on his previous pole lap.
He seems to be flickering his brakes a little bit heading down that straight bit. I wonder if he's got an issue or not, or if it was just using it to turn the car in. You wouldn't need to do that on the straight though, surely.
Surely not till you get to the braking zone. We're not seeing it as we're going down the straight here, so we do know that can be an issue with Logitech wheels, the brake flickering, which if that is happening to him is even more impressive, I dare say.
And Ethan showing incredible consistency, improving by another half of a hundredth, or another 500ths rather. So he's looking like he's going to improve again, although he does have Brendan Ross and someone else just ahead of him. Brendan Ross and Kurt Stenberg actually just ahead. Oh, and he's locked his left tyres. He might get away with it. He managed, and he's a 10th down. So Brendan Ross getting out of his way, but doesn't look like, as Rob Dunn out on the grass, but it doesn't look like he's going to improve on this particular lap. Colin Warwick also going deep at the last. Oh, Ethan Warren with a snapback in the last corner, and there goes his lap. Sorry, I know that was a disjointed series of things just kept happening around him, and it was difficult to keep track of. Rob Dunt coming around the last corner, currently down in...
He's last because he hasn't set a lap yet, so this will be his first lap.
Get to see what sort of whereabouts he is as he immediately collides with Warren coming out of the pits.
Well, Warren was... Warren, incidentally, is... Well, actually, the Warren that he collided with, was that Dane or Ethan? I haven't actually seen...
It was D. Warren was coming out of the pits.
There we go. So I don't know if Dane... Oh, he's down in 7th there. So he's 7th, and he is a 10th and a half off the pace. So that's just got to go... sorry, no, that's not right. That's the gap to the next driver. Beg your pardon. He's half a second off the pace, so that's a bit more what we would expect.
5 people across half a second is still fairly...
it is.
Pretty close.
It is a short lap, but... as we watch Rob Dunt make his way through turn 4 and turn 5. He's about a second and a half off the pace, so one would say that the time he set in practice was potentially a low fuel run.
We've got a bit of experience around this track.
Put him down in 15th or 16th.
We've got a bit of experience around this track in the V8s, don't we, with Stairs, who did a race here in the in faux endurance format.
Yes. Time-scaled 24-hour race, so tell you what, this place is not half hard to see around in the middle of the night.
Absolutely, especially when you're reversing into your friend in the pitch blackness after following him off the track in the midfield.
Indeed. A shout out to Sam Smith, who's watching along on the YouTube broadcast. G'day, Sam, and he's one who he knows Rob Dunt quite well, as these two teamed up to win the 6 hours of Spa-Francorchamps for Apex Rewing in the GT86s a couple of months ago. So congratulations again for that one, Rob Dunt and Sam Smith. I don't know if they've talked to each other since then, but nonetheless, they had a pretty good teamwork going on after being sort of Rob Dunt was thrown into the mix at the 11th hour with that one.
Yeah, but he did adapt well, and like he was number 2 driver to Sam Smith, but I mean, who wouldn't be? And he didn't put it in the wall, and they came home first of the runners that didn't have technical issues. So that's an achievement for them.
Well, Kurt Stenberg's just slowed on his lap, where he was actually up on the time that he set in the previous time around, which would have put him ahead of Brenton Hobson, but either he's found traffic or traffic's caught up to him, and because it looks like it's Ethan Warren directly in front of him on the track. I wonder if he slowed to let Ethan past, even though they're not that differently matched on pace. But Kurt Stenberg trying again. There's only a minute and a half left in this session, so it's starting to run out of time. Brody Steen up in 4th. Gee, that's looking pretty good for him for his first V8 supercar event.
Absolutely, that's some smashing pace. Lewis Wedding, not really excited so far this session, down in 9th place, and from his lap times, not looking like he's... speaking of, he's gone wide in the midfield there. Not looking like he's going to improve based off his lap times, so might be a similar situation to last race for Lewis Wedding. Just keep his head down, punch in laps, and hope that everyone ahead of him has issues.
Kurt Stenberg just had a Larry moment out of 3 with Jamie Hemme rejoining the track, and I think it just caught Stenberg a little bit by surprise, and there was a bit of a wiggle in the back of that Commodore, and it seems to have cost him a little bit of time. He was about a 10th off the pace there, and again he's not able to improve on this lap, so he's still got one more opportunity with 35 seconds remaining in the session there. No one else is really on fire at the moment. Brenton Hobson did set a purple sector in the first sector on this lap, but wasn't able to really do anything about it in the second 2 sectors. He lost out mainly in the final sector by the looks of it, and wasn't able to improve. So Ethan Warren remains at the top of the tree, still on track, so he'll have another opportunity, as will Brenton Hobson, and Brody Steen only a couple of tenths behind them.
Yeah, so Hobbo, it doesn't look like Hobbo's going to improve on this lap. He's 3 tenths down already. But Hobbo managing to hang with the big boys at the front there, with Ethan Warren and Kurt Stenberg. And Brendan Foley as well, still up in 6th and really just behind the aliens. So pretty good work for... Oh, as Lewis Wedding has come alive.
Oh my goodness.
3rd position Lewis Wedding has taken. What's happened there? Someone's just dropped out, I think.
It's Hobbo.
Hobbo's got... Where is Hobbo gone? Oh my... Please tell me that Hobbo has now not had a computer technical issue to go with his many vehicle technical issues. I sincerely hope he gets back in here before it switches over to race, because...
I'm looking at his stream and he's just gone leave. He's gone to leave the game and exit out of Automobilista, so I'm not sure what's happening there. Maybe there's something off screen that's causing him to have issues. So that's a really bizarre situation. We're just looking at Hobbo's desktop on his Twitch stream, so that's very odd, because if he can't get back in before the end of the qualifying session, and indeed the time has ticked down to 0, he might be starting from the back of the grid.
He will have warm-up to get in. Should do, anyways. Although, does it carry the time over if you're not in the qualifying session at the end of the session?
I fear it might not. Dane Warren improves on his fastest lap, but it doesn't improve his position. He's sitting there in 7th behind Brenton Foley, so a bit of a gap between the 2 Warren brothers, and in between them, 5 different cars. Kurt Stenberg, Lewis Wedding up into 3rd, Brody Steen, Colin Warwick, and Brenton Foley.
So where did Lewis Wedding pull that from, I wonder? He was seeming middling at best for that entire session, and then just last lap of the qualifying session pulls it out, and it was good enough for fourth, third with Brenton Hobson disappearing. So
Well,
where was he hiding that pace?
I don't know. I mean, he was looking nowhere in Montreal last week, last fortnight in the previous round of this championship, wasn't he? And he just came through to get the points and finish fourth with Brenton Hobson not finishing. And
Speaking of, I think we've got someone on the horn to Hobbo. Hobbo, what's going on, my friend? Have you had a computer issue this time to go with all your vehicle issues?
Oh no, I'm struggling with frame rate at the end of qualifying there. I was getting about 10 frames per second for the last couple of runs, so just rebooting to see whether or not that hopefully fixes the problem. It's pretty much undrivable. It's a shame, it took us out of a chance at the pole, but it's a good qualifying session anyway.
I'm showing you on the timing board in live races, so hopefully you're all good. So you were getting 10 frames a second, but you were still only 3/10 down on like your best lap.
Yeah, one of those laps there towards the end, I was nearly 1.5 tenths up halfway through the lap, and then I couldn't get the power down out of turn 3 at the end of the straight, so I didn't know where I was on the track. So
that's a difficult situation.
That's a difficult situation indeed. And in that dying stage is Lewis Wedding jumping into third spot, so that's not good for you if you do end up having to start from the back of the grid, because just looking at the live timing, it's got you down there in 24th at the moment because the qualifying session ended while you were rebooting. So
I didn't realise that I needed to be in there at the time. I would have waited otherwise. But
yeah,
at the minute I can't join the track.
I had to be the bearer of bad news in that regard, but it looks like that may well be what has happened. So we might see you fighting through a fairly sizable V8 supercar grid tonight.
Can't wait. The only thing that's going to make my frame rate any better is with every car in front of me on the screen, so that should be good.
There we go. Well,
we'll see though. I don't know what the protocol is here, if I can even join at all. At the minute I can't even roll out on the track, so I don't know what happens here. So we'll see. And hopefully we don't DNF before we even get to the grid this time, because that would be mighty frustrating. And yeah, that would probably be the straw that broke the camel's back, I think. But we'll see.
There we go. Well, we hope that the straw doesn't break the camel's back, and well, we'll wait to see what has transpired on the other side of this break, because we've got about 3 minutes left before the race starts, and we're going to take a quick break, and we'll see you all afterwards.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, just waiting.
And it's lights out and away we go. It's a great start from Sebastian Vettel. We come up the inside. McLaughlin gets it to They run, but the Red Bull Racing man has got through. The champion's done the job. They're all gone. They're all gone. Tanner's off. McLaughlin's off. Make room. Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt. There's another 7-time champ. Jimmy Johnson wins his 7th NASCAR Sprint Cup championship.
Alrighty, welcome back. So in the break we have had a bit of a chat with Scruff, our illustrious leader, and he reckons that the service should allow Brenton Hobson to take the grid. We certainly hope for the championship point of view that he can, but whether or not he'll be starting from the position where he qualified, we very much doubt that actually. He's showing at the moment in 23rd place in the live timing, which means that we've actually lost someone else as well, because there were 24 drivers.
Cameron Allround, I believe. Cameron Costa has dropped out in the last 30 seconds or so.
That's not ideal for him, because he's in the general chat in Discord, so it's not as though he's deliberately left, I would imagine, so that might be a technical issue for Cameron Costa as well.
Just in the pit lane, it looks like Colin Warwick is doing his very best to stop Matt Williams getting out to set any practice laps during warm-up, so not sure if that's very kosher.
Yes, let's have a closer look at that one, if we can find... There he is. That's a bit rude, isn't it? Oh, and he's gone back to his grid spot, so...
It's fixed it. He heard us. He heard us talking, obviously, so...
Yes, well, Matt Williams, did we actually see him on track in that qualifying session? It says he's 18th, so I imagine that he did set some laps, although actually, that's having said that, that's the warm-up timing screen I'm looking at, so that's actually completely inconsequential. Unless you go out onto track, though, which only 7 cars have so far in terms of setting a lap time. We've also got Will Devonish on track and Cam Rutledge, but they haven't done any timed laps in this warm-up session, which has just ticked over to 0, which means we'll be gridding up very shortly indeed.
Absolutely, and Jamie Hemme just notifying us as well that he is racing with keyboard tonight, so watch out for him. Yes,
Jamie Hemme racing with a keyboard. I do not envy him one bit, and just looking at the results from qualifying, anything short of not last in with a keyboard control setup is frankly astonishing. And indeed, he was 22nd out of 23 guys who did qualifying, just ahead of Voda. And I say just, I mean 2 seconds. So.
Voda, who appears has left the game, along with Big Dog, who I believe were both having those mismatch issues. So it has come back to kick them out of the game eventually. So big frowny faces from all the Big Dog fans out there. Doesn't look like he'll be taking the grid along with Voda and Cameron all round.
That's unfortunate. So we certainly hope those guys can get the problem rectified for future rounds, because we like to see as big a grids as we can. But having said that, because we started with 24 and we've lost 3 by the looks of it, 21 is still a pretty full grid, isn't it?
It is. It's especially around this track, which isn't enormous. So I imagine we'll have we should have stuff to look at the entire race, which will be good for us. As we've got Ethan Stairs leading the grid.
Yeah, he's our pole sitter, and we'll go through this quickly because it's a short lap. Once again, Ethan Warren, he's been here in the Super Series and dominated there, so we expect much the same again. Kurt Stenberg starting second, so Brenton Hobson, he finished ahead of Brenton Hobson, so Kurt Stenberg last week provided a lot of entertainment with his teammate Emily Jones, and Brenton Hobson does take up his grid spot, so thank goodness for that. And what a tasty battle in the second row between Brenton Hobson and Lewis Wedding starting 4th. So those two, the championship rivals, and there they are on one screen. What a sight to behold. Quite iconic by this stage of the championship. Brodie Steen making his debut in the Supercars. He starts 5th after 2 wins in the TCC. Colin Warwick in 6th place in that black Nissan Altima. Brenton Foley up in 7th place in the PBF Red Bull car. Dane Warren, the brother of our pole sitter, starts in 8th place. Will Devonish in 9th. Behind him is Brendan Ross in the Xbox Falcon, changing from Holden to Ford there. Thomas McMillan in the Scaife car. He starts from out of 11th place ahead of Philip Boak in 12th. And the second PBF Race Engineering car, Jamie Snow in the red Nissan Altima there in 13th place from Jaden Draper in the Bottle O car. 15th is Cam Rutledge, CRE Electrical. And Scott Murrell starts 16th in the Monster Energy car ahead of Rob Dunt in the Sengled Racing car. Nissan Altima, Cracker in the Hungry Jacks, 18th. And Matt Williams is actually racing tonight, so he was told Furphy earlier on, didn't he? Luke Joyner hasn't made the start, so he's in the pit lane. He may well be able to start, but he's still in the garage, so that's not ideal for him. And Jamie Hemme bringing up the rear with his keyboard, so good luck to him. We've got a full grid.
Joyner coming out into the pit lane, so he will be starting, but we'll have to start a sector behind, I believe.
Yeah, he won't be able to go until the light goes green, otherwise he will be disqualified, and that will be detrimental to any chances he has of a good result. And we're fully gridded up. I think we're going to get the lights very shortly indeed. We can't see them, but we will be all able to hear them, as always. And the tension mounts.
Absolutely. Good luck, Stairs.
Good luck, Madbird. And good luck, everyone else. We certainly hope that this can provide the entertainment that we want. The revs are rising. We can hear them. And here come the lights. And off they go. We're racing here. And there's a lot of wheel spin. There's smoke everywhere. It's a pretty even start between the two. I think a marginally better start for Kurt Stenberg, but he's not able to go around the outside. Lewis Wedding's also had another good start. And Brendan Hobson's lost places. Colin Warwick up ahead of him.
Yeah, absolutely. What a start there from a couple of the runners. There's a bit of bump and barge going through the second corner. Not much room on the track through the hairpin there, through the apex there, guys. But good work. McMillan and Ross side by side going down into turn 3. Ross looks like he might have edged him out, but McMillan going around
3 wide.
Close, and I think he's managed to get it done. Bit of bumping going on ahead stairs.
Yeah, so Ethan Warren, my goodness, what a Dane Warren. What a start for him, and Brendan Hobson absolutely swamped on the start there as they went 3 wide into turn 3. A little bit of a bump there for Colin Warren. It's been a bad start for Brody Steen. He's moved back a couple of places, well, more than a couple of places, down to 8th place as everyone jostles to get themselves into some sort of position, and Lewis Wedding is putting Kurt Stenberg under pressure. So the pace that he didn't have in practice has eventuated in the race. He's really on it, and these guys are building a bit of a gap to the battle pack behind them, and Ethan Warren already has a 1.2 second advantage as they come across on lap 1 of this 45 lap race.
Steen and Foley going side by side through turn 1. Steen is going to hang on around the outside, and there's a bit of door bumping. Foley still on the inside. Steen both of them doing very well to not make too much contact going through this, and it looks like Steen might have the better run on it. He's shutting the door. McMillan is coming across in front of him as well. Steen is going to have the job done on McMillan, I reckon, down the inside here, and he does. He's going to have to pull it up. He's gone a little bit deep as a Colin Warwick ahead of him, and it looks like Foley's the winner out of that one. He's gone through. He might have it on Colin Warwick as well. Looks like he has Foley back up into 6th place, although we'll wait and see how long he holds on to it from Colin.
Oh, Colin Warwick braked really early there for turn 4, and he almost took Steen by surprise, and Steen's lost the position to Thomas McMillan as a result of that. So Steen's shuffled back to 9th place, but Jamie Snow's got a bit of a watching brief, and all these cars are so close to one another. And as Warren goes, look at that, it's just a train behind. We got Thomas McMillan, Brody Steen, Jamie Snow, Brendan Ross, Jaden Draper, Will Devonish, who's now having a look at Jaden Draper, who's had to go defensive as they approach turn 1. And behind them we've got Brendan, is it Brendan? No, it's not Brendan Foley. It's Philip Boak going side by side with Rob Dunt. So all sorts of action kicking off in the midfield here.
Absolutely. Philip Boak with a tiny little tap on the back of Scott Murrell there, but luckily it was after Scott had already straightened up, so no damage done. Dane Warren all over the back of Brendan Hobson. He gets an immense swapper on out of the 3rd corner, manages to hold on to it, but he has lost a couple of car lengths there to Hobbo. Meanwhile, up ahead, Lewis Wedding is all over the back of Kurt Stenberg's gearbox. I don't know where this pace has come from, but I'm liking it, as Kurt Stenberg gets a very, very, very happy rear end coming out of that corner, coming down towards the final one. Lewis Wedding is keeping pace with one of the faster guys on the grid, as Ethan Warren is saying, "You guys keep fighting. I'm gonna be out of here, just setting really hot laps and stretching my 2.5 second advantage."
And into the 7s is Ethan Warren, so that's the sort of pace we saw in the early part of qualifying. So 107.8, no one else is anywhere near him. Kurt Stenberg about 8/10 slower on that lap, and out of the top 10 he's the 2nd fastest guy, so he's starting to stretch a little bit away from Lewis Wedding, but Lewis Wedding's pretty comfortable there in 3rd place, and by Jove has he come alive from a pace point of view in this race. So he's gone missing just a little bit in the previous races, but the Lewis Wedding of old is back.
Absolutely, and I'm very happy to see it. Brody Steen getting up into 8th place through on Colin Warwick. Colin Warwick just going very wide back on that second corner, which he's done the last couple of laps. But
here he goes. Colin Warwick fights back at turn 4, and he sent it down the inside. And oh, we got all sorts of cars off the track. It's Thomas McMillan rejoining in front of these guys. Jamie Snow went off as well, and this has all worked out for Thomas McMillan. Thankfully hasn't lost the position, but Jamie Snow's going to have the position on Brody Steen up the inside of turn 6, but he's boxed out just a little bit And Jamie Snow makes the position on Brody Steen, but he's all over the track out of 6, and those tyres are not going to like that on lap 4. They're a long way to go before their pit stops, Madbird.
Absolutely. There's still 41 laps to go, and some of these cars already look like they're skating on ice. So this is going to be an incredibly interesting race to watch from a tyre strategy point of view. As McMillan goes wide again, coming out of the second corner. Looks like he's kept his foot in it.
He certainly did, and that's going to allow Colin Warwick up the inside. We've got Brody Steen fighting back on Jamie Snow. It's hard to know where to look. There's 2 wide battles going on everywhere, and who would have thought such a simple racetrack can provide this sort of scintillating battle? And Will Devonish is looking to capitalise on the battle between Brody Steen and Jamie Snow.
Just McMillan ahead of Jamie Snow and Brody Steen, just as he was coming out of that corner, just put his foot down and the car started to just go away from him, and he let off and then put the foot down again. And just like it happened with Jamie Snow there, just sliding but managing to keep hold of it. It's incredibly entertaining to watch, but I imagine incredibly terrifying to be grappling with the wheel inside.
Definitely. Also happening is Thomas McMillan is under pressure from Thomas McMillan, who's just sort of streaked away a little bit from this battle pack behind them after his earlier off. So Thomas McMillan's got the real deal in terms of pace as well.
Brendan Ross got past Will Devonish somehow. Will Devonish was behind Steen, looking like he was wanting to capitalise on that. So Brendan Ross doing well to get up ahead of Delightfully Devonish as Steen is clouding the curb and losing a bit of time there, but he's managing to keep that car all over the back of Jamie Snow. And just the combination of straights and very harsh braking zones on this track make for some very interesting overtake.
Will's just sent it up at 3, and he's got that position there on Brendan Ross. Well done there. Philip Boak's now caught up to the back of this grid, and Rob Dunt's only a second or 2 behind. He'll be catching up before long and picking up the pieces of anything that goes wrong with this battle. So what a fantastic scrap so far. I'm loving this.
Yep, I've got no idea where I should be looking, Stairs. I keep wanting to double check up the front because we have a history in these races of front runners having horrible things happen to them out of the blue and us missing it. So I'm trying to keep an eye on everything, but there's people side by side all throughout the field. It's insane.
Speaking of
Rob Dunt, Rob Dunt.
That's a bit wide. Yeah, he's held on to it. He's going to lose out. But speaking of front runners, Ethan Warren has stretched out to nearly 6 seconds of an advantage at the lead. So he's gone. He's checked out. The only thing that can hamper him now is an engine failure or a bad pit stop, but 5-second advantage over Kurt Stenberg, who in turn has about a 2-second advantage over Lewis Wedding. So Lewis Wedding probably just falling back towards Brenton Hobson at this stage. Brenton Hobson was marginally quicker than Lewis Wedding on the last time around, but I mean, they're in the same 1/10 of a second in terms of lap time, about a couple of tenths off Stenberg, so, and about 2 seconds separating them behind. In fact, Hobson's probably more worried about Dane Warren, who's less than a second behind him. So that's going to be something that looks set to rage on. Now that we've updated you on that, we can get stuck into this 3 or 4 car train, which actually has steadied a little bit in the last few laps. The pack shuffling themselves into probably the natural order that we'd expect as Will Devonish goes just a little bit wide there at the final corner.
Absolutely. So, yeah, Brendan Steen down in 9th with 2 tenths over Will Devonish. Will Devonish with 6 tenths over Brendan Ross. Brendan Ross with 5 tenths over Jamie Snow. So these 4 are incredibly close together on track. One little mistake and you're going to lose a position. And Matt Williams appears to have DNF'd at some stage. So that race was very short-lived for El Chief. Wonder what happened there.
Not ideal.
Oh, Jamie Snow coming out of turn 2 just had an incredible tank slapper, but managed to hold on to it. Has lost a bit of time, but Will Devonish can't go anywhere with it. So Brendan Ross and Jamie Snow both catching back up to him.
Let's right on board with Jamie Snow here as he's seeing the cars of Brendan Ross and Will Devonish just driving away from him a little bit at the moment. Wonder whether he's taken a little bit too much life out of his tyres. Or as I say that, the car in front goes a little bit deep, locks the front left and doesn't trouble the apex there at turn 5. And he's caught right up onto the back there of Brendan Ross, and he's not quite close enough to have a look into the final corner. He's all over the track. Brendan Ross not troubling any apexes on this particular lap. And but just driving out of the corner, he's on the throttle just that little bit earlier, and there's not really any chance for a switchback on a track like this. Jamie Snow's just not close enough to capitalise.
Yeah, it really is just a matter of getting a better exit and hoping that you're that your opponent makes some sort of mistake going into the corner, because it is a difficult track to overtake on if both drivers are racing well and at their limit. It takes a good bit of bravery to shove it down the inside on some of these braking zones. As Brendan Ross has gone incredibly deep. Jamie Snow nearly followed him but managed to pull it up. He'd have a bit of a flat spot, I reckon, as he's now lost the position to Philip Boak. Incredible tank slapper coming out of that corner. So the tyres on these cars are just falling to pieces, Stairs, before our very eyes.
Oh, and Jamie Snow back up the inside of turn 4 there, but he's not going to be able to make that position and keep it. They're taking a lot of curb there at turn 5, but swings and roundabouts for Jamie Snow. He gained the position on Brendan Ross, who went off in front of him, but then lost the position to Philip Boak, ever the opportunist, and Rob Dunt, as sure as I said it not a couple of laps ago, is caught up to the back of these guys and looking to capitalise on the mistakes they're making. Brendan Ross was quite heavily affected by that mistake. 2 positions he lost, very costly. Yeah,
it's one little mistake, and you can very easily lose a couple of positions when you're racing this close. There's a couple of Brody Steen is now caught up to the back of McMillan, so he's all over the back of him. So McMillan must have had an issue somewhere. Colin Warwick only just ahead of them. So you said this is Brody Steen's first race in the V8s. This is an incredible first showing. I say that it's 9th position, but it feels like it's a lot more impressive than it is because everyone's so close on track.
He's had a fair bit of airtime. But yeah, no, he was peerless in the TCC Championship on Monday, which is his debut, and gets quite a bit of a swapper on there out of turn 5, I believe that is. So not quite as close. Going a little bit. Ethan Warren stretched himself out to a nearly 9-second advantage over Kurt Stenberg. Lewis Weddings just sort of pegged that gap in third to Kurt Stenberg at about 2.5 seconds. Brendan Hobson's just probably falling away a bit, if anything, off the back of Lewis Wedding. They're still matching each other almost 10th for 10th, but every margin seems to be in Lewis Wedding's favour, just a little bit, and that's now about a 4-second advantage.
Hobson just had a huge tank slapper coming out of the third corner. Dane Warren.
I've given him the curse. I've given him the curse.
Thank you very much, and he's gone through. Brendan Hobson, I'm amazed he held on to that, because it was one way, and then it was the other, and then it was back the other, and then he just managed to.
And I'm gonna get you. Oh, and he's nearly
through the condition of some of these drivers' tyres. It appears that Dane Warren is holding on to his quite a bit better than any of the cars around him. His are in much better nick, so definitely would have been helping out with him following along behind Hobson, whose tyres are crying out a little bit. And Luke Joyner looking like he's getting lapped. Lewis Wedding coming up to lap him in third place.
Free of Brenton Hobson, how much faster, if at all, is he than Lewis Wedding? Can he start to bridge that gap? It's about 4 seconds at the moment, or make that 3 seconds. And now that he's free of Brenton Hobson, will he start to come back towards the podium positions and fight for that third place with Lewis Wedding?
Very possibly, although Hobson has caught back up to him pretty quickly. He hasn't let him get too far away, so Hobson clearly not without pace himself, so I wouldn't think Warren would be able to completely dismiss his rearview mirror at this stage. Lewis just released from Luke Joyner, who smartly got out of the way coming out of turn 5, and now Hemi being Hemi being lapped by Ethan Warren, as Ethan goes incredibly deep at the third corner, so 9 seconds.
He's made a mistake.
He's got a 9-second lead, so it doesn't really cost him much, and he's taken a hell of a lot of life out of those tyres, but look at the results. So he's obviously trying to set some good times before he pits, hopefully hold on to that advantage.
Yeah, Colin Warwick now in 6th place is being put under a bit of pressure from Brenton Foley, and Brenton on the last lap is down into the 10s there, having set a 1:08.8 as his best lap, just marginally faster than Colin Warwick. And looking at the pace, I think Brody Steen's coming towards them at a rapid rate of knots. He took 1.4 seconds out of Brenton Foley on the previous lap. So this is a 2-car battle that will soon become a 3-car battle. And that's Luke Joyner they're catching up to too. So the traffic you mentioned, Lewis Wedding lapping, is now becoming a factor with Colin Warwick and Brenton Foley.
Yeah, and it looks like McMillan must have had a major off because he's down in 14th place and his car appears to be all over the place. Rob Dunn trying to get around Brendan Ross, but Brendan Ross defending a little bit rudely, I'd say, in my opinion. But Rob Dunn just getting on with it. He's dipping in behind him, going to try to go for it on this first corner. Smartly backs out, but he might have a switchback if he gets a better line through this second corner. It breaks a little bit earlier, takes a wider line through the corner, so he should be able to get onto the throttle a little bit earlier.
Big moment for Brendan Ross, really quite leery on the exit of 2 there. And that's put him under pressure from Rob Dunt. Rob Dunt's put himself in the wrong position from a racecraft point of view, though. He's on the outside and he's going to get hung out into the marbles if he's not careful, but he's got fantastic drive off turn 3. While you were mentioning that, Luke Joyner let the big group of Colin Warwick, Brenton Foley and Brodie Steen, Will Devonish through, and he did that by going onto the grass, so it was quite polite of him. Not sure if it was intentional, but they're all through unscathed, and that battle's still very, very close indeed. And
Hemi is the next one, just behind Lewis Wedding currently. So Dane Warren and Brendan Hobson. Looks like I've been skipping through the field and I saw Brendan Hobson having a couple more hairy moments coming out of corners. So his tyres definitely crying for some relief by the looks of it. Hemi getting out of the way on the grass, taking a bit of a line out of Luke Joyner's book. Ethan Warren now up to an 11-second lead over Kurt Stenberg. So he's managing to make those tyres last incredibly well considering the pace that he's putting in. Quali laps every lap.
Yeah, still in the 108. Well, last lap 108.2, which would have been, I think, got him pretty far up on the grid, I dare say. Not exactly sure what the pole time was from memory, but I reckon he would have been in the top 10 with a time like that. But I mean, he's just started lap 16. We're only a third distance in this race. They've got to make the tyres last a little while longer yet if they want to make it a one-stop and a huge slide for Ethan Warren out of 2.
Brendan Ross, McMillan and Rob Dunt are having a bit of a tussle coming through turn 5 and heading on down towards the last corner. I'm not sure if Brendan Ross is moving in the... Oh, as McMillan tags him going into the corner. I'm not sure if and still, I don't know if Brendan Ross is moving in the braking zone or if just the cars that are following him don't seem to be really committing to a move. They're just sort of shifting slightly towards the inside, but then Brendan Ross uses his braking move to do so as well. So McMillan...
Oh, that's a dive! There's no... He didn't quite... That was a gap that was always ever going to close. And Thomas McMillan wedged his way into it, and thankfully it didn't cause Brendan Ross too much harm, although he's up the inside at 3, beg your pardon. And is he going to get it stopped? There's a bit of a switchback on here. Oh, and Thomas McMillan's had a huge moment on the throttle. Fantastic car control, and Ross goes to the inside, but he's not close enough to have a look down the inside of turn 4. This is scintillating stuff. And this is all, just Rob Dunt is just sitting there and waiting patiently, and I think that's probably the best thing for Rob Dunt right now.
Yeah, just wait for, because the way that these two are driving, although Rob Dunt is now all over the back of Brendan Ross, so he might be wanting to have a go himself, but with the way those two, as he hits on the curb and loses control of the car a little bit, loses 10th after 10th to Brendan Ross ahead, who's all over the grass himself, so... Everyone a little bit ragged out there, Stairs.
Certainly are. Well, who else have we not mentioned? We'll have a bit of a quick look at the rest of the battles going on track. And there's a lot of people close.
Lewis Wedding seems to actually be expanding his gap to Dane Warren. It's now up around 2.8 seconds. Just dipped into the 3 seconds there for a moment, but and Hobbo all over the back of Dane Warren. So,
yeah, Dane Warren's not able to put the hammer down. He's driving in his mirrors more than he is looking towards Lewis Wedding up ahead of him. Because, yeah, Hobson's in that sort of zone where he's just getting dragged along by the draft, but not quite close enough to make a move at any of the corners. But certainly means Dane Warren can't relax for a second. A little bit wide there, onto the curb. Not as costly as it would have been on this corner because it's not followed by a massive straight as this one is.
Hobbo's got a bit of a run on him here. I don't think he's going to have the pace to have a go at him, but he might. He just has a little look, tries to remember Dane. I am here.
Dane goes a little bit wide,
and I am fighting for the championship, so I'm obviously not slow. And Dane, obviously, as you say, I think he's a little bit more concerned with what's behind him than what's in front of him at the moment.
We've got Luke Joyner in the pit lane at the moment, so that's an early stop, lap 18.
Oh, and Hemi, oh my goodness, there's calamity further down the field. Hemi has exploded his engine. I just saw fire shooting from the back of it, so not sure what's happened there, but he also caused a little bit of a collision with a couple of the... And Ethan Warren is off by the side of the road. He is down 11th, 12th, 13th place. 14th place. Ethan Warren is back to garage. So, oh my, what's happened there, Stairs?
Well, we're going to have a look at him because this is what we saw happen to him. Was it Ethan or Dane Warren? We saw this happen in Hidden Valley, but I have a very bad feeling this could be the same thing that we saw early on, that we've seen time and time again with Brenton Hobson as an engine failure.
I mean, he
it's already happened there. I'm not hearing the fire that you hear with an engine failure, but it might be a quiet one. Maybe it's fuel.
I guess it could be.
There's not smoke coming out that car.
How bizarre.
The engine's still making noise. That's a really very strange retirement for Ethan Warren, but well, it hasn't exactly brought the race alive because Lewis Wedding still is 5 seconds behind Kurt Stenberg. It means from having a comfortable win for Ethan Warren, we have a comfortable win for Kurt Stenberg, if anything. But what disaster for Ethan Warren.
It's just, what is it with this series, Stairs? Cars just seem to implode when they're doing quite well, and it just I don't think we've had a race so far where that hasn't happened. Almost those exact words haven't happened.
It's yeah, I mean, it's sad because we don't want to see this sort of thing happen, but it certainly means that we're always second guessing what's going to happen with these races. But the man you're now looking at, Kurt Stenberg, is in the lead of the race, and he leads by 7 seconds from Lewis Wedding, who is pretty happy with second place at the moment. He's motoring along quite nicely, and he's in position with Dane Warren between them. He's going to add a nice few chunk of points onto his championship lead.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not sure how to feel anymore. As Luke Joyner, oh no, he was being lapped. Okay, I thought someone else. It was pulled off to the side of the road, and I thought that we had another retirement. But
Jamie Hemi is also retired. I believe that was probably before Ethan Warren.
That was the exploded engine that I was mentioning before Ethan Warren.
Oh yeah, in the confusion of Ethan Warren retiring, I completely forgot that Jamie Hemi retired. So I wonder if that's yeah, we actually did see a replay of that, and so Jamie Hemi having a slightly more obvious engine failure, if indeed it was an engine failure for Ethan Warren. Then yeah, because there was fire and brimstone for him, but obviously the keyboard may be providing inputs that are a little bit too sudden for these V8 supercar engines, as Dane Warren lights it up. And I've heard the pit lane sirens, so I'm not sure, is there someone else in the pits? Number 16th place, Cracker.
Cracker is in the pits.
So I wonder if that's a scheduled stop. 21 laps into this race, so we're starting to get towards that window where you can make it to the end of the race. I feel like the undercut is going to be very powerful in this race with the benefit of new tyres if you can keep it on the track at the end of the race.
Sorry, Brendan Foley has spun it around coming out of turn 3 by the looks of it. He's lost a position to Philip Boak. I'm not sure what position he was in before that, but he's now down in 9th place, so I just I jumped on at the end of him flipping it back around the right way. Brendan Hobson in the pits, so the first of our front runners.
So lap number 21. Yeah, so Brendan Foley, that's an early pit stop there for Brendan Hobson, did you say? As we see Brendan Foley. These tyres have got a fair bit of work to do on the second lap, but this is, I was about to mention, this may well be a critical point in the race for Brendan Hobson, because if he gets some quick lap times with some clear traffic on this racetrack at the moment with those fresh tyres, then he may well be able to jump Dane Warren in the pit, when the pit stops finally shake out. So that will be very interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely, and it looks like both himself and Brendan Foley both going to change all 4 tyres. I wonder if anyone will take the gamble on just changing the lefts, since it is a very left-heavy circuit. Yeah, although the right tyres do take a pounding through these middle 2 corners as well. It'd save you a bit of time, but I feel like it'd be a brave man that would do that, Stairs.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not as though they're preceded. It's not as though the 2 left-handers are not followed by a fairly lengthy straight. I mean, it's not. It's only 1 straight compared to the 3 straights that the right-handers are followed by. We've got other cars in the pits. We've got Jaden Draper, Rob Dunt, Thomas McMillan, and Dane Warren, who was on line for a podium. So this will be him reacting to Brenton Hobson, and it's pretty. Yeah, it's pretty obvious that the undercut has worked a treat for Brenton Hobson. Now, the only question remaining for him is, can he keep those tyres alive till the end of the race? But my goodness, I said the undercut was powerful. I didn't expect it to be quite that powerful.
Yeah, and I feel like Lewis Wedding would need to be having a good think about. Oh, and he is. He's dived into the pits. So
I think he might have been caught napping, quite honestly. If that's the advantage that Hobbo has got on on Dane Warren, then imagine the potential advantage he's got on Lewis Wedding, because this could be a very, as we've got all sorts of other cars, Lewis Wedding having to drive around Brodie Steen, who could barely get into his box with Colin Warwick ahead of him. Will Devonish also in.
Hobbo's coming down towards the last corner now, so it looks like Lewis Wedding's going to keep the lead at this stage over Brenton Hobson, although Brenton's going to be up to speed much faster than
Lewis Wedding!
Oh no.
Lewis Wedding, we've lost Lewis Wedding!
No.
Lewis Wedding, he's still on the screen. No, he's not on the screens. His timing is on the screens, but I feel like that is a technical issue for Lewis Wedding, who hasn't rejoined. We can't see him.
No, he is, when I go to him, I'm just seeing an empty pit, and he's back in the pits, so Lewis Wedding, oh no. When you think, oh, he's on the pace, he's going to have a good result tonight. Again, just technical issues plaguing this series and robbing us of a fantastic battle. Which, I mean, the battle is raging on regardless somehow. But we want to see these drivers battling on track, Stairs, not battling in the pits with their pit crews.
No, well, it's it nearly cost him the GT3 championship, Lewis Wedding, and now it's potentially,
Dane Warren off the track and in the pits as well. He's gone back to the garage. So
retirement for Dane Warren. So what has happened there? We're going to go and find a replay of that. Here he is going along, happy as you like, and almost identical. The same spot where his brother Ethan Warren went off the track.
And Philip Boak appears to have been collided with in the pits, because his car is at a 45-degree angle to how it should be. He's recovered it back and is exiting the pits now, but someone must have gotten very close to him and given him a love tap going through the pits.
He pit in front of Thomas McMillan, who's just... Oh, he's forgotten that... Thomas McMillan's forgotten it's not iRacing, and has driven straight into him in the pit lane.
Well, Philip,
you can't drive through cars in the pit lane here in Automobilista, my friends, because that's what's going to happen.
Bokia would not be thanking him for that. Luckily, it doesn't look like it's done him too much damage, and McMillan up ahead of him is taking himself off the... Oh, that might be Luke Joyner, actually. Never mind, they're very similar cars. I believe we have my waifu, Lewis Wedding, here in Discord. Lewis, what happened, mate?
I honestly could not tell you. Obviously, I made my pit stop. I exited the pits. When I exited the pits, I didn't there was a gap in front of me and a gap behind me. So I thought, okay, I'm just in a bit of space. And then, because I've been on Discord, people are like, "Oh, Lewis, where have you gone?" Like, I don't know. And then I checked the relative and everything. I checked around the track and couldn't see anyone, and that was it. I didn't even it didn't even send me. It didn't give me a connection lost or anything. It just disconnected me, but I was still connected to Discord and everything. Like, my internet's still running fine, so I have no idea what that problem was.
Goodness me, I was looking forward to that as well because Hobbo was gaining on you while you're in the pits. That was going to be great.
Thomas McMillan has just looped it in front of Brenton Foley, so that's out of 2. He's losing positions as we speak. Go on, Madbird.
Yeah, I was looking forward to a battle between yourself and Hobson. Hobson pitting those couple of laps earlier. An incredible undercut on yourself and Dane Warren.
He would have had to pit again. He didn't. He wouldn't have had. He would have had to get a splash and dash at the end when he pitted. So I was quite comfortable with like, aside from obviously Kurt and who was it, Ethan, in front of me. I was comfortable. I was in my own sort of race. I was slightly faster than Hobbo in the majority of the first stint, and then yeah, obviously had that problem, which is really frustrating because this is one of the few rounds that I've actually been genuinely faster than Hobson. I was obviously in front of him in the race. I was running clean, and yeah, something's happened, so it's a bit frustrating.
Thomas McMillan is stopped at on the straight outside between turns 2 and 3, and there's a yellow flag there, but it doesn't look like he's going anywhere at the moment.
Yeah, definitely.
But interesting you say that. So Hobson may, by your numbers, have to pit again, and I wonder if he knows that because, well, looking at his stream, he doesn't like running fuel numbers. I think he might have an off-board information graphic to give him information like that. But that's interesting. Having pit on lap 21, got a significant undercut, may need to come in for fuel again.
I really hope that McMillan gets his car out of the way soon because just watching onboards coming down that straight, if anyone tries to go side by side down there, there's going to be nastiness occur, I believe. Colin Warwick, yeah, there we go, and Scruff.
Speaking of side by side.
Yep. Brody Steen, sorry, right alongside Colin Warwick. So Colin Warwick, not with an incredible amount of pace tonight, but Brody Steen currently battling over a podium position in his first V8 Supercars race.
That's not his first. Colin Warwick's been with us for a few rounds now.
Sorry, I meant Brody Steen.
Brody Steen, yes. Well, and speaking of that, Brody Steen trying to go around the outside of turn 3. He had his nose ahead, but he did not have the ideal racing position because Colin Warwick was on the inside. And Brody Steen faking to the outside. Is he going to go to the inside? He's not close enough to have a bit of a dive, or is he? Yes, he is! Right down there. Bit of a bump and run there. Probably a little bit rude. Colin Warwick might be a little bit miffed about that, but nonetheless, Brody Steen up into 3rd place.
Yeah, definitely, and probably his left tyre is probably a tiny bit upset. He did have a huge lock-up trying to pull that off, as Colin has got
return serve there.
Good tap, yeah, there you go. Now they're even, Stephen. Colin Warwick has lost out from that, though. He's a few car lengths back, and Brody Steen up into 3rd place in his first V8 Supercars race. Brendan Hobson probably counting his lucky stars there. He didn't have to try to take the position from Lewis on track, up into 2nd.
Well, I barely had time to say it because because Ethan Warren retired from the Dane Warren retired from the race before I had a chance to. But when Brendan Hobson was in the 3rd place before the retirement of the 2nd Warren brother, he would have equal on points just for a moment with Lewis Wedding, with the 15 points between them at that stage. But now that Brendan Hobson is up in 2nd place, which gets you a grand total of 17 points. That will put him on our live championship ladder 2 points ahead of Lewis Wedding. Although, having said that, we've got Pro-Am and Pro B runners to work out. So Lewis Wedding may well still net 1 or 2 points from tonight's running, but it's all very tight.
It is, and unfortunate for Lewis Wedding that he had his issue when he did, rather than 1 lap later when he would have been 2 positions up, because Dane Warren and Thomas McMillan both DNF'd the lap following Lewis's issue, I believe. So that could have been another 2 positions for him at least. But it's just, he sounded like a defeated man, Stairs. He just, he had some real pace tonight, and I genuinely feel for him.
Yeah, well, it's the irony of this particular championship. We've seen that. I mean, Lewis Wedding has got back points on Brendan Hobson or he even extended a championship lead on Brendan Hobson when he really didn't have the pace. And then the time when he does have the pace over Brendan Hobson, it looks to be going his way. Although he's not got an answer for Kurt Stenberg, but 2nd place, he'd be mighty happy with that.
Yeah, definitely, especially considering that he wasn't really looking like it to begin with. Like he was obviously fast, but not matching the front four once Dane got past him. Oh, actually, no, he was gaining on Dane, so potentially a sneaky fourth position for Brendan Hobson, assuming no DNFs. But
Well, Warwick's in the pits.
Warwick's in the pits, so maybe his tyres were crying enough. Oh, it doesn't look like Warwick has pit yet, or if he has, he hasn't changed his tyres. Now he has
So that's
new tyres.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. That makes it look even better for Brody Steen.
Yeah, he was. I mean, although Colin Warwick was doing an incredible job of defending on those tyres, considering how worn they were. Coming out into, it looks like 7th place, although Rob Dunt might have a cheeky look on him coming down the start-finish straight. Indeed, Rob Dunt does go through, so Colin Warwick coming out into 8th place, but with much fresher tyres, about 3-4 laps younger than those cars ahead of him.
Well, with the pace he's shown, you expect him to close in on Rob Dunt fairly quickly.
Yeah, definitely, and I believe that everyone is now pit. With the exception of... No, I believe everyone is pit except potentially Scott Murrell, whose tyres are looking very second-hand. Although probably not second-hand enough to have to be the ones that he started on. So no, I believe everyone has pit. So it'll be interesting to see who has to pit again before the end of the race. I imagine Colin Warwick will be hoping that a few people ahead of him will be pitting before the end of the race.
Well, the interesting thing for this is that Lewis Wedding would have been a little bit happier if the two Warren brothers were still in the race, because they were giving Hobson a bit of a run for his money. Well, Ethan Warren especially so, and having with both of them retired, it gives more points towards Hobson. If they're still in the race, he's in 4th place, and and Lewis Wedding is still in the lead of the championship if that happens. But because they're both out, it's very good news for Brendan Hobson.
Yeah, and it is as you say, it is almost a reversal of previous weeks where Hobbo has had an issue and Lewis Wedding has gotten points on him from down in 7th or 8th position or whatever he's been in after an issue of his own, or just lack of pace. And has managed to claw himself the championship leader out of it. So it would be somewhat fitting if Hobbo managed to do the same thing back to him.
Certainly. Two guys we haven't really made too much mention of in the race: Brenton Foley and Philip Bogue, both in the PBF Red Bull cars. They've just sort of quietly.
Pace, and Bogue as well. Both very good runners in the Pro-Am, who I expect will be promoted up at the end of this season. I will say Brody Steen is not dropping away from Hobson. In fact, he's
closing that in, yeah.
4/10 of Hobson. So pitting those couple of laps later, I think, seems to have helped him out, helped his case a bit. And Hobson just doesn't appear to be on song tonight. So I imagine Lewis Wedding will be punching the air and cheering for Steen to get that position done and drop Hobson down the order a little bit.
Yeah, well, that gap only a lap or two ago was much, much bigger than that. Do you want to borrow a screwdriver? Tape measure? Open it up. Sorry. Yeah. Brody Steen is closed into Brenton Hobson. He's got much fresher tyres, and Lewis Wedding thinks Brenton Hobson needs to pit again. Having pit on lap 21, he would have expected a splash and dash, so I don't know. Brenton Hobson, I don't know if he is into lift and coast and fuel saving, and if anyone knows about fuel saving, it's Lewis Wedding, so if he doesn't think Brenton Hobson can make it, then he probably can't.
Yeah, definitely. Let me have I'm not sure if I've got that. I don't think I do have that information. Bugger.
No, we don't get fuel information, but I mean, Lewis Wedding down in the chat thinks that Brenton Hobson is fuel saving, which would make sense given what we've heard from him, because I mean, even if you lose a heck of a chunk of time lifting and coasting, you're not going to lose as much time as it would be as you would coming into the pit stops, into the pit lane to make a pit stop.
Yeah, definitely with 10 laps to go. So if Steen manages to get this position done, I imagine if Hobbo's having to fuel save this much, either he's really underfueled, or he's hoping that if he loses the position to Steen, that he can go full bore the last couple of laps and get it back.
Absolutely.
Because this is incomfortable back to Foley. So many Bs. We've got B.
There's a lot of Bs. We don't even have B half, as Brenton Hobson has a bit of a wiggly moment into turn 6 there.
Well, Warwick was I believe he was in 9th place behind Rob Dunt, so he's actually gained a couple of positions.
But he was closing in on Brendan Ross, so I'm wondering if that means that those guys, there were other people ahead of him that made mistakes also, because it sort of doesn't really add up that he's lost 8 seconds almost to Brendan Ross.
Oh, so Steen had such a better run through the second corner on Hobson, but Hobbo just managed to park that car right on the apex, and Steen had nowhere to go with it. I can imagine that Steen is just, he's like gripping that, locking up that front right. He's gripping that wheel and just gritting his teeth. It's just got to be patient. If Hobbo's fuel saving, then it's going to come to him. He's just got to find the moment. But Hobbo appears to be fast enough in the parts of the track that he needs to be to keep the newcomer behind.
Yeah, we're just going on board to see if we can maybe hear whether he's fuel saving. Actually, we'll go jump on there to see if he can see his brake lights. They seem to be coming on almost as soon as he gets off the throttle. We'll see where he brakes at turn 1. Yeah, there's a little bit of crossover there between the brake and the accelerator there, but
to have picked up the pace a bit. Steen definitely not all over him like he was a couple of laps ago, so if he has managed to save enough fuel and he can go full bore for the last 7 laps, then Steen will be kicking himself that he didn't capitalise on it while he could.
Yeah, they're both in the 108s at the moment, which is the same pace that Brenton Foley is doing behind them, but sort of thick end of 3 or 4 tenths of a second slower than Kurt Stenberg, who's just sort of managing that gap. It's sitting at around 12 seconds, and it's not really coming down.
No, yeah, just I bet he can't believe his luck. It's just sort of fallen into his lap when he was and is just continuing to drive off with that into the sunset after a very good position last week. I believe came home in 2nd behind his teammate. Yes,
Emily Jones, but obviously they've had enough to provide 1 car for us here in Queensland Raceway after the trip back from the east coast of Canada, which is a bit of a departure from where these cars normally race. Philip Boak's
Sorry, you go.
Philip Boak's just got Brendan Ross for company. He's not that far behind, but enough to make him pay attention. If he makes a single mistake, he will lose that position. But running quite strongly in 5th at the moment. Absolutely. As we rejoin the battle for 2nd.
I was going to say, do they do like season memberships for V8 Supercars, Stairs? Like, can you buy like a membership for the year that gets you into all the races or something like that?
I have read something about that, but I'm not that au fait with it. Supercars, incidentally, seems to be from a bit of the survey we've done throughout the week of the AMS Oz guys, probably the most popular series amongst the guys running Automobilista Australia, running in this Automobilista Australia series, which I don't know that it's that much of a surprise since it's an Australian touring car series.
Yeah, but absolutely, and yeah, I mean,
having said that, since it's not my favourite series of all. It's in terms of real life, I do follow it, but not anywhere near as closely as everyone else does. So maybe someone in the chat may well be able to enlighten us as to the perks or otherwise of the V8 Supercar memberships and whether that actually still exists.
I was just thinking, wouldn't you be spewing if you bought a Supercars membership and then one of the races was in Canada?
Well, they did do one in Abu Dhabi many years ago, and I don't know if that would have been included, to be quite honest with you.
That would have been an interesting race to watch. Brody Steen...
It wasn't.
Brody Steen closing back up on Hobson, back within a couple of tenths, so either he's found a little bit more pace and maybe Hobbo's found he's had to fuel save a little bit more. I thought that he'd left the door open for Steen there, but just every single lap he seems to catch him in that second corner, but Hobbo's just so good at placing that car exactly where Steen needs it to not be to make that position up. So they're very quickly catching up on Cracker.
Well, Hobbo's gone wide there, and that's allowed Brody Steen up alongside. They're both wiggling out of 3, and they were both a full second slower than Kurt Stenberg on the last time around, so there's no danger at all of them catching Kurt Stenberg. Kurt Stenberg's having an absolute laugh out in the front. He loves this racetrack, the paperclip.
I do notice that coming out of that third corner, Hobbo goes a lot wider. He uses a lot more of that left-hand side of the track as he's accelerating, and then cuts back onto the straight itself, because there's that alternate layout, I think, where it goes left instead of right. And he uses all of that, whereas Steen takes a much tighter line, and I think Hobbo's is actually quite a bit faster. He seems to get a lot more speed up, a lot faster for that straight than Steen does. So be interesting. Just watch on this lap when they get down there, if they get down there, if they don't collide going through this corner, and just see if I'm completely stupid with that analysis, or if I've actually said something competent for once in my life.
Well, we'll have a look. We're going to go on board with Brody Steen and just compare the two racing lines, as he does close up quite a bit there, but he's actually a little bit earlier on the throttle than Brenton Hobson. I think Brenton Hobson slowed it a little bit more on the apex, but here we go. Here we see Brenton Hobson start to stretch away as they go towards turn 4, and there's nothing Brody Steen can do there. He's not close enough to make any sort of attempt at a move, and he's a little bit later on the throttle out of turn 5 there, and you can see the car length that Brenton Hobson stretches out on the run down to turn 6.
Yeah, so he's got what, 4 laps to do this in. Steen does 3 laps rather, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, 4 laps to get this job done, and it's just not looking like it unless Hobbo's tyres fall off the cliff, which he did pit a few laps earlier than Steen. Although looking at the blistering on the tyres, you wouldn't know it.
Meanwhile, Brandon Ross has really closed on to Philip Boak. Philip Boak has got an absolute task on his hands. We've got someone going off in the background there. Can't see who quite that is, but Philip Boak has got a huge task on his hands to hold on to 5th place here with a very fast Brendan Ross, who, by the looks of it, he would be in line to finish on the podium in the Super 2 category. So the Super 2 guy's going quite strong at the moment.
Yeah, it helps that so many of the higher ups have all crashed out or DNF'd. Although it isn't as much of a race of attrition as it was last week. Only 5 DNF'd so far this week, rather than, I think we had like something like 10 or 11 last week or last fortnight. It was insane.
It was quite a crazy race. So I get the feeling some of it's down to considering most of these guys are pretty well versed with the Australian racetracks. When they go to a Formula 1 track, they don't know it quite as well, and given the walls are close at Montreal, it amounted to a high rate of attrition.
Oh, Steen is so close to Hobson. He just keeps catching him in the corners, and Hobson plants it on those apexes. There's nowhere for him to go, although he's got a better run on him down here. Might have a go down into turn 3. Hobson going to defend. Steen going for the outside because he's got no choice. Brakes a bit later than Hobson. Hobson's pulling it up nicely, but Steen's going to go around the outside. Has managed to hold on to it. He's going to get a better run than Hobson down towards turn 4. He's still alongside him. If he manages to hang on to this, then he's going to have this job done. Although Hobson does have a little bit more pace. Steen brakes a lot later than Hobson, locks up his left tyres, but manages to pull it up to the apex. And he's through. He has got a bit of a tank slapper. Hobbo is all over the back of him, so he can't relax yet.
Oh, he's gone off!
He's on the grass. Hobbo has got a better run on him. He's going to have the job back done around the outside, although Steen is still alongside him, still braking down the inside. Hobbo going around the outer, and Steen just trying to hang on. He's still alongside him, Stairs. You take over. What
an absolute ding-dong battle here. Brody Steen has been passed by Brenton Hobson. You've got to thought that he had the job done, but Brenton Hobson fought back with every inch of the way. He set the move up perfectly. He had the inside into turn 4, and he cut him off, but he just went wide on turn 5, and that was the invitation that Brenton Hobson needed. He RSVP'd immediately to that one. He still was on the outside, but Brody Steen just didn't get the pace on the outside of coming out of turn 6. And in the end, it was Brendan Hobson was able to swoop back by after getting a car length clear into turn 1. And Brody Steen's going to have to try again because there's only a lap and a half remaining. And it'd have to be a last lap lunge, I should think, between those two. Philip Boak seems to have kept Colin Warwick at bay for now. Brody Steen, does he have one last answer for that one?
Absolutely. He's lost a lot of time there to Hobbo going through that middle sector. He got a little bit scary on the curbs. Although Hobbo's car is jinking like crazy under steering input as well. So definitely a couple of wounded animals out there, both very worn on tyres. He's going to have to have an incredible go down the inside, I think, into turn 3 to get this job done is Steen. He does have much better drive through those first couple of corners than Hobbo, just nowhere to go with it. Unless he gets a decent run, Hobbo takes a late apex at this corner and it catches Steen every time. He just never seems to be able to get the foot down as he would like. Not going to be able to have it go down into turn 3 on this lap, I don't think, unless he makes a very late dive.
He has to set himself up for either out of the final corner or into the final corner. But here he goes, a little bit wide again for Brendan Hobson, but we've seen that time and time again, and he gets the pace out of turn 3, down to turn 4. He's got another few car lengths. Kurt Stenberg's not far away from finishing the race. We're on the final lap here. Brendan Hobson absolutely driving it on the apex, no way through there for Brody Steen. And here is Kurt Stenberg to win his second race in this championship. The championship leader, Lewis Wedding, has only won one, but now Kurt Stenberg has won one. But will Lewis Wedding remain the championship leader? I don't think he will, because here we go. Kurt Stenberg, Brendan Hobson has not been passed by Brody Steen. Brody Steen tried everything, but he couldn't do it. And what a podium finish. Second place there for Brendan Hobson, and by Jove, he had to earn that one.
Absolutely, yes, that was... Oh, and Brody had a go on him down into the last corner, but Hobbo just moved across and just did just enough to block him and managed to hold him back. So, all right, Steen, take a bow because it's an incredible debut in the V8s.
Meanwhile, we've got Foley finishing 4th, only just ahead of Colin Warwick. A fast finishing Colin Warwick on new tyres, by the looks of it, closed that 10-second gap, managed to pass both Philip Boak and Brendan Ross in the closing laps. So what a fast finish for Colin Warwick. We missed that because we were focusing on the Hobson-Steen battle, but Colin Warwick, 5th place, displaces Boak, who ends up 6th from Brendan Ross in 7th. Will Devonish 8th, Jaden Draper 9th, and that rounds out everyone on the lead lap.
I thought that I saw Colin go into the pits. We're just getting communication that he did pit twice. First time he forgot to change tyres. So if he hadn't done that, he would have been well up in the contention for a podium position, I think.
And all of this lets Lewis Wedding watching this would be probably tearing his hair out that so many people have made errors that have allowed Brendan Hobson up into 2nd place. And Brendan Hobson will take 17 points, and he'll say thank you very much. That'll put him up on 105. And we wait to see what Lewis Wedding gets when everything shakes out and we divide these guys up into... Well, he's finished, but because of the way the points work with this, he's finished 18th, which would give no points. But when we take out all the Super 2 Pro-Am runners, he'll probably end up with a handful of points, as Brendan Hobson has in previous races when he's not finished at all, considering he's blown his engine up on lap 3 on some occasion. But he didn't do that today. He finished 2nd, and he joins us here. Brendan Hobson, you had a bit of a battle on your hands to keep that 2nd place tonight, didn't you?
Yeah. Yep. I don't think I've ever had a more frustrating race in all my life, and I swear that about lap 15, I was considering just parking it and just calling it on the race and the series, because the stuff that's been going on in this is just really crazy. But we didn't have a setup, because when we left the server, of course, our setup defaulted. So I had the wrong gear in the car, didn't realise because I couldn't do a warm-up, so I didn't know. And so we were off to a bad start. We continued to have our frame rate issues for about the first 15 laps as well, which made it so hard just to stay on the track. And then I realised about lap 20 that I was out of fuel, or it's assumed that I was right out of fuel, and couldn't get the interface in-game to show me how much fuel I had left. So I had to pit, so I thought I was going to run out, and then short-fueled myself to finish. So I had to save the whole way home. And then when I finally got the fuel on screen so I could try and hit a number, I didn't realise when I get to 0 laps left that I still have 1 lap of fuel left. So I saved the whole lap of fuel that I didn't even need to save in the end. So It was a extremely frustrating race, but I don't know what happened to Lewis. I feel bad for him because he was quick enough to beat us tonight easily, and something's obviously gone wrong for him. So we'll get some points and we'll suffer it the night for the points, and we'll see where we stack up and come back next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's sort of a bit ironic that the one time Lewis, well, I think Simmons Plains is probably the last time we saw that he was genuinely quicker than you, and but he tends to get points back on the nights where he's not quicker than you, and tonight was a bit different, unfortunately for him. You'll go forward into Eastern Creek pretty much equal on points by my math, so that certainly is a tasty battle for us watching at home.
It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that stacks up. But like, the way that this is running, it really is just who stuffs up the worst sort of thing. So we'll see where we are at Eastern Creek. We had terrible pace here this week, so hopefully we can actually have some good speed when we get there, and might be able to actually figure out how this platform works and not make a fool of myself. And we'll see. We might even be competitive for a change and not do something stupid. But anyway, we'll see.
No worries.
Speaking
Well,
of,
I think you're always
sorry,
competitive.
Speaking of benefiting from stuff ups, Kurt Stenberg, I imagine when the first load of pit stops came around, you weren't expecting to find yourself in first place with Ethan Warren off by the side of the road.
Yeah, look, that race, I just started there and just looking after my tyres. I knew I didn't have the pace for Ethan. I was actually in Discord with him, and I knew about 10 laps into the race that he didn't have enough fuel and didn't know how to put fuel in the car. So
We thought that's what it was.
Yeah, that made it a lot easier for me to just pot around and just mind my own business. But then I come around to the pit stops, and it seems that everybody else who was around me had dramas. So I don't know what happened to Lewis, but I know Dane had fuel problems, McMillan had problems. Yeah, there's a whole heap of people with pit problems, so yeah, easy race in the end.
Absolutely. Well, Dane and Ethan, I think their retirements were almost identical, and as you said, down to fuel, we didn't feel like we heard any fire in the engine from them. So fuel becoming quite an interesting catalyst in this race, and well, obviously once you were out in front, it was just about managing that gap behind, wasn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. So after I come out of the pits, I just was potting around and just seeing if I was maintaining a gap. Wasn't worth throwing it off the road or doing anything silly, so yeah.
There we go. Well, your second win, I believe, in this series, so you're off to a pretty ripping start with this Supercars series. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's been good fun.
Certainly has. Turning our attention to third place, man. I believe we've been joined by Brody Steen. Brody, are you with us?
Yes, I sure am.
How was that race for you, Brody? It's I mean, we saw you take 2 wins on Monday in the TCC series, and you've made a bit of a bang with your first Supercars race. How'd it go for you?
Oh man, that was a tough race. Had an awesome battle with Brenton there at the end.
Certainly did.
Yeah, I sort of bungled up the start a bit there. I got a heap of wheel spin, and then just got freight trained on the outside going into turn 4 all of the time. I'd get a good run coming out of 2, be on the inside to 3, and then I'd just get freight trained.
Yeah, well, I mean, it looks like a lot of the guys had slightly different lines throughout the race, and you seem to be catching up to Hobbo sort of mid-corner, but then he'd get the jump on the corner exit and just make a few car lengths down the end of the straight.
Yeah, I sort of took a very narrow line through the hairpins.
Indeed, and well, towards the end of the race, you looked like you had the position done on Hobbo, and then you got a little bit wide at 5, and he got the position back, so tell us about that battle.
Yeah, I just grabbed a bit too much curve on the inside of 5 there, just enough to shoot me up wide and hand the place back to Brenton.
And that's all it took, but nonetheless a fantastic battle.
I was actually quite glad he went to defend the inside into 3, because I'd sort of figured that was the outside was the better place to be. But then, yeah, just stuffed it up through the midsection.
There you go. Well, it was fantastic viewing for us at home, and another fast person to join the ranks in this series, they're always welcome. So will you be joining us with Eastern Creek or any of the other series coming up at the Automobilista Australia?
Yeah, I should join on Thursday nights pretty often. Not sure about the Monday night races. I've got a few prior commitments then.
There we go. Well, speaking of races that we've got coming up in the future, we'll have a bit of a look at what's coming up very soon. And we've got the World Endurance Championship, the WEC Round 1. That's coming up on Sunday, the 29th of July. So that's at the Daytona Road Course. And the TCC, as we mentioned before, that's going ahead to its 5th round at Salvador in Brazil next Monday. Before next Thursday, the Super Series returns for round 1. That's going to be at Sandown on Thursday, the 2nd of August. As for this series, we'll be heading to Eastern Creek in, I believe that's 2 weeks' time, the 9th of August. Yes, it is, as we follow the regular V8 Supercars calendar. And if tonight's anything to go by, Madbird, it's going to be as unpredictable as the first 9 rounds were.
I feel like that's the best call of my commentary career, was predict the unpredictable for these V8 Supercars rounds, because I don't seem that whenever there seems to be a certainty, it isn't certain. So I guess that makes it exciting for everyone watching at home, although it would make it frustrating for some of our runners. But regardless, I'm very much looking forward to seeing what the next round throws in our faces.
Certainly agree with you there, and well, that pretty much brings our broadcast to an end. Thank you to all the drivers who had a chat with us tonight, and thank you, of course, to all the drivers who provided another scintillating race, especially the first half of that race with the mid-pack battle. I absolutely loved that. But that pretty much is all we have time for, so thank you very much indeed for watching. Bye for now.
See you guys.